Hello everyone. Welcome to the e-learning program initiated by Sri Gyanamindra Vidyapeeth for the students of standard 8th. Nice to see you once again in today's social science lecture for semester 1. In the last lecture, we initiated the third chapter, that is Indian Constitution, to ourselves. In the lecture, we understood about the topic preamble, isn't it? We were learning about the Constitution and we are still learning about the Constitution. To learn about the Constitution, the important thing that we learned was about the preamble, which is the introductory statement. Well, there are many more things that we need to acknowledge to ourselves about the Constitution, and therefore we will be continuing our lecture today. Before we continue and discuss more about the Constitution facts that I have written on the board and a few questions that come to my mind to satisfy my curiosity and similarly out there to your curiosity as well. That is what I presume. So, preamble was the introductory statement. It is the mirror of the Constitution, it is the blueprint of the Constitution, and likely we can use many more words or a manual, as I just tried to explain in the last lecture. So today, without further ado, we are going to ask a question to ourselves about Constitution facts. Number of questions come to our mind when you read this word Indian Constitution. Well, what is Constitution? The very first question. Well, Constitution is a book containing the set of rules required to smoothly run the administration of our country. And for almost all countries, there would be a constitution. Earlier, we acknowledged that a constitution could be in a written or an unwritten manner as well. Well, our constitution is a written one. So we have a few questions in mind. As you can see, what is the Constitution of India? Who made it? How was it made? And the time taken for its formation, and so on. These are only 4 questions I put up on the board. There could be more questions that could be arising in your mind, and definitely I would be trying to assist you with these things. Well, so without further ado, let us quickly go through the content given to us in our text where we had come to a halt last time. That is the Constitution. We will read from there on page number 25. So have the text in your hand. A systematic compilation of set of rules to run the government of a country is known as the Constitution of the country. A simple definition. But I don't think the definition is apt, although it is a complete one. But we can still add to it, and I will be showing you some image and reading it with you a little later. So, Constitution can be in the written or unwritten form, and our Constitution starts with the preamble. That is what we read in the last lecture, and we understood from here what preamble is. So, our entire lecture, the previous lecture was about the complete understanding about preamble. So, today we are going to learn and understand about what our Constitution is and how was it formed. Well, let us go through the textual content first and then come back to some additional information which is important for us to gain. How was the Constitution of India formed? Can you see the question? How was it formed? Who made it and how was it made? So I put up the question for ourselves. Let's satisfy our curiosity and answer this question. The Constitution of India is the statement of national goals and aims such as democracy, socialism, secularism, national unity, etc. So, in the last lecture we had understood a bit details about these goals, these values that come across in the preamble. So, the Constitution of India is a statement, is a document which has been written in order to meet some national goals, some national targets and aims such as democracy. Our country is a democratic country. We say the constitution of the country or the government is run in the manner of the people, for the people and by the people. Therefore, democracy is prevalent in our country. Similarly, socialism we learnt about, secularism we learnt about in the last lecture, and national unity, of course. Further, the content given to us, the Constituent Assembly was established. So a committee of people got together first in order to form the constitution, and it was known as the Constituent Assembly. So you can very well acknowledge the word constituent derived from the word constitution. So Constituent Assembly and assembly, a group of people who will be assembling together. So on behalf of the people of the country, people of India, they would be administrating, they would be framing, or they would be making the constitution. So the Constituent Assembly was established. It started working from 9th December 1946. So from this particular date, which you should remember, they started the work of making our constitution. So our constitution was being made since 9th December 1946. It started from this particular date. The Constituent Assembly was formed of prominent and distinguished scholars and leaders. So it was not anyone who was a part of the Constituent Assembly. It was learned people, scholars who were educated. So they were scholars, those who had the understanding about how to frame a constitution, how to make a constitution. They had the do's and don'ts, the knows and know not about the working of the constitution. So these people together got and tried to make the constitution, to build the constitution. So the Constituent Assembly is formed of prominent and distinguished scholars and leaders. Their political vision and foresight was incorporated in the constitution. So in order to make the constitution, their thoughts, their views, their political understanding was taken use of, made use of. Therefore it said it was incorporated, it was put into the making of the constitution. Incorporated means to put it into, to embed it inside. So whatever ideas, political vision, whatever they could foresee was all included in the making of the constitution. And who were these people? Leaders like Jawaharlal Nehru, Dr. Rajendra Prasad, Sardar Patel, Maulana Abdul Kalam Azad, Shyam Prasad Mukherjee, Sardar Baldev Singh, and see word etc. is given. It means there were still more people. So some few prominent names have been mentioned over here, and you can see alternatively the image is also being shown to you in the material. Well, provided their guidance, they gave their valuable inputs, how and what should be the part of the constitution. So it was the need of that time. So these were the people who gave their valuable suggestions, valuable views, thoughts, their political vision, and whatever best they could put into the constitution at that given point of time. No doubt the constitution has been modified certain number of times, but at that given point of time these people were there to make this constitution. Well, there were female members, so it is not that there were only male members who were a part of the formation of the constitution. There were female members as well. Members like Sarojini Naidu and Vijaya Lakshmi Pandit. Well, Dr. Rajendra Prasad was elected as the President of the Constituent Assembly. So this is one important information which has been highlighted in the material in black bold letters, which you should remember. So Dr. Rajendra Prasad was elected as the President of the Constituent Assembly. So he was the head. There were a number of subcommittees to take care of the various aspects of the constitution. Now the making of the constitution was not an easy task. It was a mammoth task, a gigantic task, isn't it? It's not something easy for it to be prepared. So what was the requirement? Subcommittees were formed, and probably heads would be appointed for subcommittees too, isn't it? That happens when a big project is to be taken care of in a company or somewhere. We have a head team, or we have got a team of members who would be leading it, but then they would be assigning the work to their subordinates. Similarly, here what happened? The Constituent Assembly which was formed, they made some subcommittees so that everyone would be looking into their work area, because number of aspects were to be covered in the constitution related to men, women, rights, duties, related to different states, and many more things were to be covered. So subcommittees were made to take care of the various aspects of the constitution, various parts of the constitution that was being framed at that given point of time. Further, you can see the underlined part. That means it's a very important thing for you to read and understand. The drafting committee, which was headed by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. Now this is a different committee, probably a subcommittee of the Constituent Assembly. The drafting committee. Draft means you make a raw structure of the whole thing. It is not yet finalized, which has got a number of space or room to make changes in it. So drafting committee. The drafting committee, which was led by or headed by Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar, B.R. Ambedkar, gave to the constitution its final shape. So he gave the final shape to its constitution, all that was to be included in it. And total 166 meetings were done, because these people lived in different places. They had to gather at some place in order to discuss, isn't it? Therefore, meetings were conducted. Total 166 meetings were held by the Constituent Assembly. So the Constituent Assembly and its members happened to meet 166 times in order to bring the final shape of the Constitution. In a time period of 2 years, 11 months and 18 days. So there the question has been answered. Time taken for its formation. I put up the question. How much time was taken? 2 years, 11 months and 18 days, to be very, very precise. This much time was taken for the formation of the Constitution. Well, on 26th November 1949, the committee passed the Constitution, which was enforced on 26th January 1950. So there are two important dates that you need to acknowledge. So once again, those dates have been highlighted in bold black letters, apart from the underlining as you see. So on 26th November 1949, it was passed by the Constitution. So in a way it was adopted, we can say, but it was not enforced on the people. The people of our country did not start obeying and abiding the rules and regulations, the laws that were mentioned inside the Constitution. It was only on 26th January which we acknowledge as the Republic Day 1950, when people started abiding by the Constitution or its rules and regulations. So these are the two important dates one needs to remember. Now maybe the question comes to your mind, 26th January 1950, why this date was selected? Have you ever thought? Yes, there is a reason for selecting this date, and we will be discussing about this in a while. Well, further you can see over there the activity given to you, about which I just discussed with you. Do you know why the day of 26th January was selected to enforce the Constitution? It's a very valuable question that has been asked to us. Why only this date? Is there any reason for this? Yes, we have a reason for that, and I will be discussing this soon with you. Well, further we have more questions over here to ask and then answer to ourselves. Why do we need a constitution? What if there is no constitution? No country can function without a constitution. Well, a constitution serves many objectives. It is a document which finely weaves the ethos and ideals of our countries. So the ethics of our country, the rules and regulations of our country are woven inside the constitution that has been prepared. So it is applicable to almost all countries of the world. So every country requires a book or something that is a set of rules which the people of the country can abide by. Therefore, we need a constitution, and if there is no constitution, then definitely there would be no law and order in the country. Further, it tells us about the kind of government our country would have. How to run the administration of a country? Another question. In a democratic form of government, we elect our leaders so that they can run the administration on our behalf. So what is happening in our country? It is not you, I, or all the people of the country who will be dictating terms, who will be laying down their rules. No, it is a certain set of people who have been elected by us by way of elections. Well, when you will be 18 plus, you will be getting the right to vote, and you will be able to elect your leaders. So By electing few people, they form the government, and this government decides how the country will work. So we entrust the power in their hands. So it tells us about the kind of government our country would have and how to run the administration of a country. So in a democratic country form of government, we elect our leaders so that they can run the administration on behalf of the entire nation, the people of the nation. However, there are provisions in the constitution to check the misuse of the power by the leader. Yes, it could happen that whom we have given the power may misuse it. So there are provisions in the constitution that in case such a situation arises or someone misuses the power that is given to him or her, then the people themselves can check them and stop them from misusing their power. So this is how the constitution works, and it is very important for us to have this constitution in our country. Well, these were a few questions that we tried to answer. Further, we will have to know about how was our constitution formed, isn't it? Where did we get this idea from forming the constitution? Well, as we know earlier that Jawaharlal Nehru prepared the objective resolution which was presented on 13 December 1946, and later on it was a part of the preamble. Well, this is how the idea of the constitution came into the minds of the people, and it was the need, because at that time British government was ruling over us and they were about to give us the power in our hands, the autonomous power. Therefore it was required. The Constitution of India has borrowed some special features. So our constitution is not something that has been purely decided or thought by us. Most of the idea has been taken or has been inspired from other constitutions. So we have borrowed the idea or have been inspired by some special features of other constitutions, like the Constitution of Britain, then Ireland, France, and the United States of America. Well, I will be discussing with you some detailed information about this as well with the help of images. So this was the information about what is Indian Constitution, and we tried to answer these questions for ourselves. Well, it is now time to discuss some important information with the help of images that I would like to show you. Have a look at your screen. The image being displayed to you about the introduction to the Constitution of India. The Indian Constitution is unique in both spirit and content. Well, new word for you, spirit. Spirit means in the soulful manner, and content, what is written within it. So our constitution is a unique one, a special one, notwithstanding the fact that several features of the constitution have been borrowed from the other constitutions from all over the world. Now a new word once again, notwithstanding means in spite of the fact that several features of our constitution have been borrowed, have been taken from other constitutions from all over the world. It is really a unique piece of work. Though we have borrowed ideas from other constitutions, despite of that, it is a unique one, something that is different. Well, the original constitution have been considerably changed by various amendments that have been brought forth, such as the 7th Amendment, 42nd, 44th, 73rd and 74th Amendment. So a number of changes have come about in the original constitution that was present or that was given to us on 26th January 1950 when it came into enforcement. Well, further we can say that the Constitution of India is a document containing the framework of the political system, the duties, rights, limitations and structure of the government that this nation ought to follow. It also spells out, it means it gives out, it tells us the rights and duties of the Indian citizens. Nobody in India, not even the Prime Minister or the President, has the power to do anything that violates the constitutional rules. You see how strict our constitution is, how firm the constitution is. Well, every year on 26th January, as we know, we celebrate the Republic Day. It is on this day in 1950 that the Constitution of India became effective. Although Dr. Ambedkar is known for his prominent role in drafting the Constitution, it was the fruit of the hard work of 299 people that finally we got this Constitution. Well, let us ask ourselves a new question. How big is our Constitution? The Indian Constitution is the lengthiest constitution in the world. It has 448 articles organized into 25 parts and 12 schedules. Our country is so big with so many cultures, castes and religions, and with so many states that people who drafted the constitution had to focus on the minutest of detail. Besides, the constitution has been amended many times and new rules and laws have been added time to time. As a result, the Constitution of India became the lengthiest constitution in the world. Well, when it was made, it was not the lengthiest one. Let us talk about the length of our constitution and some features of the constitution. The Constitution of India is the lengthiest written constitution of the world with approximately 1,45,000 words. It is the second longest constitution in the world after the Constitution of Alabama. It took the Constituent Assembly about 2 years 11 months to prepare it. We already read it on the content given to us. Indian Constitution was adopted by the Constituent Assembly of India on 26 November 1949 and it came into effect on 26 January 1950. Well, the Constitution replaced the Government of India Act. So even before the Constitution came into enforcement, we had a set of rules that was given to us by the British known as the Government of India Act 1935. Well, you will be reading about this in the chapter about history. And the Dominion of India became the Republic of India. So it was dominated country, isn't it? It became a republic country later on, and therefore we celebrate 26th January as a Republic Day. Initially there were 22 parts, 395 articles and 8 schedules in the Indian Constitution. Its provisions were borrowed from the Government of India Act 1935 and the Constitution of the US, Ireland, Britain, Canada, Australia, Germany, the USSR, France, South Africa, Japan and other countries. Thus, the Indian Constitution contains provisions of more than 60 constitutions present at that time. So, our Constitution was borrowed from or was made up from the borrowings from more than 60 constitutions. All the major source of Indian constitutions were provided by the Government of India Act, and what was provided from that? The administrative details, the federal plan, emergency provision, Public Service Commission, Governor's Office and Judiciary was taken or derived from the Government of India Act. Whereas the US Constitution gave us the preamble, fundamental rights, federal structure of government, electoral college, judicial review, equal protection under law, President as Supreme Commander of the Armed Forces, his impeachment and functions, post of the Vice President, independence of judiciary and separation of powers between the 3 branches of the government. Judicial review was taken from the US Constitution. Well, British Constitution gave us the parliamentary form of government, idea of single citizenship, concept of the rule of law, institution of speaker and his role and legislative process. Constitution of Canada, quasi-federal form of government, a federal system with a strong central government, Distribution of power between the central government and state government. So this feature has been borrowed from the Canadian Constitution. Residual powers of central government, Supreme Court's advisory jurisdiction, center's power to appoint governors of states were taken from the Canadian Constitution. Constitution of Ireland provided the directive principles of the state policy, DPSP. Nomination of the Rajya Sabha members, method of president's election. French Constitution gave us the concept of republic. Ideals of freedom, equality, fraternity in the preamble. The Australian Constitution provided the concurrent list, freedom of trade and commerce within the country and between states, power of the national legislature to enact laws, to implement treaties, even on matters outside the general federal jurisdiction. The joint setting of the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha is taken from the Australian Constitution. The Constitution of Soviet USSR gave us the fundamental duties, planning commission, ideals of social, economic and political justice mentioned in the preamble. Constitution of South Africa provided the constitution amendment process, election of the Rajya Sabha members. The Weimar Constitution of Germany provided us the union emergency powers, suspension of fundamental rights during emergency. Finally, the Constitution of Japan gave us the procedure established by law. Therefore, Indian Constitution is also called a bag of borrowings because it contains many provisions borrowed from a large number of constitutions. The Constitution of India is a unique document as it was prepared after nearly about 2 years, 11 months and 18 days, months of hard work by the Constituent Assembly. It is a flexible constitution having provisions that allow for amendments to address the immediate needs and future problems of the Indian society. Well, have a look at the next image telling us that our constitution is flexible or rigid. So a question comes to us, is our constitution flexible or rigid? Well, the beautiful thing about our constitution is it can be modified if a political party has a super majority, yet it is not easily modifiable. The Supreme Court has ruled that no provision of the Constitution can be with the aim to destroy the provision. So you can't destroy the Constitution. Supreme Court has made the provision over here. At the same time, nobody has the right to tweak the basic structure of the Constitution. You can't break the fundamentals of the Constitution. As a result, on one hand, our Constitution remains updated, and on the other, no political party or evil intentions can deface or destroy it to establish monopoly. Unlike the British, our constitution is completely written with no ambiguity. Well, a new word for you, ambiguity means inexactness. Everything is very precise over here. So there is no ambiguity over here. It focuses on the minutest aspects of the political, executive and the legal system of the country, and it also focuses on the fundamental rights and duties of the citizens of India. You can see the overview. What was the aim? An act to make further provisions for the government of India, to run the administration of India. The territorial extent, the territories under direct British control, enacted by the Parliament of United Kingdom. The Royal Assent, 24th July 1935. When was it commenced? 1st April 1937 and repealed on 26th January 1950 in India. Well, the Government of India Act, a background I'd like to discuss with you. There was a growing demand for the constitutional reforms in India by the Indian leaders. So the Indian leaders were demanding changes in the way the administration that was happening by the British, the way they were ruling us. They were demanding for more and more powers in the hands of the Indian people. Therefore, due to the demand, India's support to Britain in the First World War also aided in British acknowledgement of the need for the inclusion of more Indians in the administration of their own country. The act was based on the Simon Commission report, the recommendations of the Round Table Conferences, the white paper published by the British government in 1933 based on the Third Round Table Conference, and the report of the Joint Select Committee. The creation of an All India Federation. This federation was to consist of the British India and the princely states. The provisions in British India would have to join the federation, but this was not compulsory for the princely states. This federation never materialized because of the lack of support from the required number of princely states. Well, how the Government of India Act 1935 divided powers. This act divided powers between the center and the provinces. There were three lists which gave the subjects under each government: the federal list, the provisional list, and the concurrent list. Well, federal list means the list provided by the center. Provisional list is the provinces, the states, because that time they were not states, they were provinces. And concurrent list, that is the list which was made by both federal as well as the provinces. Certain changes that were brought through the Government of India Act have been mentioned in this table, as you can see. The provisional autonomy, diarchy at the center, bicameral legislature, federal court, Indian council, franchise and reorganization. These were some features of the Government of India Act 1935. Well, let us now read the content given to us on page number 26 about the salient features of the Constitution. Democratic rule, the first one. India has adopted the democratic rule of government. That is what we know, isn't it? Of the people, for the people and by the people. For which general elections are held in our country every 5 years. So every 5 years our country experiences, witnesses the general elections. By means of this, the government is selected. Citizens above the age of 18 are eligible to cast their vote. They are able to give their vote and provide their opinion, and they get an opportunity to select their leaders. We cannot imagine democracy without elections. So these are the two sides of a coin, democracy and elections. So democracy cannot be thought about without elections. Unless and until elections is done, democracy cannot exist. Therefore, you can say that we cannot imagine democracy without the provision of elections. People all over the country play their role in electing their representatives. So it's not just in one state of the country, everywhere, all over the country, all over India, elections are held and people elect their representatives in their particular regions. Any voter of the country can contest an election irrespective of his or her religion, caste, class or gender, male or female. So Indian citizens of a certain age are allowed to stand as contestants also. So any voter of the country can not just vote but also contest for the elections. It could be male, female, no matter whatever religion he or she follows, whatever caste or class does he belong to, or whether it's a male or female. Well, the elected representatives rule for 5 years. So once the people get elected, they are in power, they have the opportunity to rule and administer the country, run the administration of the country for the next 5 years once they are elected. Every citizen enjoys the freedom to follow religion of his or her choice, as well as freedom of speech, expression and thoughts. These were some features that we came across in the preamble also, isn't it? So you see, we're reading about a salient feature of the Constitution, which has already been discussed in the preamble as the mirror, as the introductory statement. So we have the freedom of speech, we have the freedom of expressing ourselves in our country and our thoughts as well. So this is the important feature about the democratic rule, the rule of the people, for the people and by the people. You can see the picture of voting polling booth given to you, where people are lined up over there. So both male, female, both are allowed to cast their votes. The next feature that we see in our constitution is this feature of secularism. Well, we discussed about this in the last lecture also. Let's read through the lines given to us in the content. A secular nation means that the government does not conform to the norms of any particular religion in its system of governance. So, the Indian government or the governance that is done in our country is not based on any religion. The country does not have any religion of its own, neither the state has a religion of its own. Yes, people are free to follow their religion, propagate the religion, abide by the rules and regulations. So, but the country or the state, two types of governments that we have in our country, they are secular, a secular nation we have. So, government does not conform to the norms of any particular religion in its system of governance. The country does not govern on the name or in the name of any particular religion. So, our country is a secular nation. It does not belong to the governance on the basis of religion. Citizens are not discriminated on the basis of their faith, sect or religion they follow. So, people are not being separated. They are not being discriminated. They are not deprived of any rights or duties just on the basis of their religion or faith or belief what they follow. It is not that X person follows A religion and Y person follows B religion and Z person follows a C religion and therefore he will be discriminated. No, that is not the case in our country. Therefore, our country is a secular country, a secular nation. We have, individuals have the right to follow any religion, believe, but the country does not have its own religion, or the state does not have its own religion. So, the governance is not done in the name of religion. But every citizen enjoys the right to follow and propagate the religion of his or her choice. That is possible. People are given the freedom to choose the religion, propagate the religion, believe and follow the religion. So that is an important feature of our country. The second important feature of our country, that is secularism. So I hope secularism is now very clear to you. Third feature is republic. Well, the word we discussed earlier also. The meaning is given to us. Republic means a government that obtains power from the people directly or indirectly. So in a direct or an indirect manner, the government of India has been authorized, has been powered, has been energized by the people of our country, by the citizens of India to run the administration, to form the government. So we can say that the government obtains powers. The government takes powers in its hands from the people of the country, the common people of the country. It is we who give the government the power to rule the administration in a smooth manner in our country. Well, we the people of India have adopted a democratic republic system of government, which means that the powers are not limited in the hands of a few privileged people. No, the powers that we give are not limited in the hands of few people. It is not just few people, otherwise they would be dominating our country. They would become the rulers, they would become the kings and queens of our country, isn't it? So the power has not been given to just a few people or in the hands of few people who are privileged. Rather, it is accessible to all the citizens. So the common people have the power in their hands, irrespective of their caste, class, religion or gender, male or female. So people following any caste, class or of any gender, male or female, is free to be a part of the government. It is not that only few privileged people will get the right to go and serve in the government. No, every citizen has got the right. Every eligible citizen has got, every voter has got the right to go and serve the country. So our country is a republic country, a democratic country. Well, we have the next thing about things to know. Any common person, you, me, isn't it? Well, right now you are students. So when you will be attaining that particular age, you will be able to contest for the elections. So any common person, man or woman, be it a hawker or a vegetable vendor can become the sarpanch of a village. So it is not that if you are having great wealth or if you are highly knowledgeable, only then you will be able to become a sarpanch. So any common man, woman, be it a hawker, a vegetable vendor, can become a sarpanch of a village if he or she has got the eligibility criteria in him. For example, a mason, Manjibai, contested elections of the Legislative Assembly and became the member of the Legislative Assembly, the MLA. Well, we take a pause today over here after having read about this. In the upcoming lecture, we will discuss the legislature, executive and judiciary, the organs of the government, the functioning of the government, the parliamentary procedures, and the federal state, the fundamental rights and duties, with some more things. So I hope you enjoyed and understood about what I tried to teach you today in this video about the Constitution. Let us now write the homework. For homework, you will be writing the question answers given to you on page number 31 and 32 respectively. So open your text, your material to page number 31. How was the Constitution of India formed? And on page 32 you have what is a constitution and why do we need it. Well, I mentioned on the board, note it down. See you soon in the upcoming lecture. Till then, take care. Have a nice day and goodbye.